Coastal Carolina takes on Appalachian State, 7:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff Wednesday night. Coastal Carolina's -5, total 61. We're 3-0 in our last three college football tier package picks on BrockPage.com. We're also 6-0 in our last six NFL tier package picks on that very same webpage. We currently have over 850 members who are signed up and active on that site. And if you want to see which one of these free YouTube picks I'm actually betting on, there's only one way to do that, and that's to sign up for a membership on my website. And once again, that's BrockPage.com. Now, Coastal Carolina is 6-0 thus far in this season, 5-1 against the number in those 6 victories. The Chanticleers are scoring 49 points a game, and they're leading the country in offensive yards per play. Grayson McCall has thrown for 14 touchdown passes and just 1 interception. The quarterback's been sacked only 4 times. Javon Hiley and Isaiah Likely, they each have over 500 yards receiving, and they've combined for a dozen touchdown catches. And when it comes to the rushing attack, Coastal's averaging over 260 yards a game on the ground. Now, defensively, the Shans are a top 3 pass defense. They're taking on an Appy State team who failed to cover in 3 out of their last 4 ball games. Harrington, Peoples, and Noel, they're all questionable for Wednesday's game. The Mountaineers have also struggled to stop the pass. They're 91st in the country in pass defense. Now, total-wise, Appalachian State, they saw 3 out of their last 4 get over the number. They also went 3-1 to the over in their last 4 meetings with Coastal. I'm going to lean toward the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers -5 and the over 61. Next game, FAU versus Charlotte. 7:30 Eastern start on Thursday. FAU's -7, totals 56.5. Now, Florida Atlantic failed to cover in 3 out of their last 4 ball games, and they have one of the worst rush defenses in college football. They're allowing over 203 yards a game on the ground, and they also rank 113th in first quarter points allowed. Now, they're taking on a Charlotte team who's 3-0 straight up at home, and they successfully covered the number in 5 out of their last 6. Charlotte's been running the football pretty well this year. They're in the top 25 in home rushing. Calvin Camp is averaging over 5.5 yards a carry in the backfield. The 49ers are also in the top 25 in fourth quarter scoring at home. Now, total-wise, 5 out of Charlotte's last 6 meetings with Florida Atlantic got over the line. Charlotte also saw 2 out of their last 3 contests get over the total as well. I'm going to lean towards Charlotte +7 and the over 56.5. Next game, Louisiana, Arkansas State, 7:30 Eastern start time on Thursday. Louisiana's -17.5, total 70. And as good as they've been, the banged-up Raging Cajuns have failed to cover in 4 out of their last 6. Now, Louisiana somewhat struggled to throw the football on the road. They're averaging just 196 pass yards a game when traveling. They're taking on an Arkansas State team who throws for over 385 yards a game on their home field. Corey Rucker and Tavalence Hunt, they each have over 450 yards receiving this season. They've also both combined for 10 touchdown catches as well. Now, the Red Wolves currently lead the country in fourth quarter scoring at home. When it comes to the total in this one, 6 out of these teams' last 10 meetings did stay under the number. Meanwhile, the Raging Cajuns are 5-1 to the under for the entire season themselves, 3-0 to the under when traveling. I'm going to lean toward the underdog, Arkansas State Red Wolves, +17.5 and the under 70. Next matchup, Tulane versus SMU, 7:30 Eastern kickoff Thursday night. SMU's -14, total 70. The 6-0 Mustangs are scoring 44 points a game at home, and they're throwing for over 315 yards per contest. Tanner Mordecai's thrown for nearly 1,900 yards, along with 26 touchdown passes. Danny Gray and Rashee Rice, they've combined for 13 touchdown receptions between the two of them. SMU's in the top 10 in the country in fourth quarter scoring at home. They're taking on a Tulane squad who's on a 4-game losing streak, and they also lost all 3 of their road games. The Green Wave is giving up a shocking 51 points a game when they travel, and they rank 117th in pass defense on the road. Now, total-wise, Tulane's 5-1 to the over for the season, 3-0 to the over when traveling. Give me SMU minus 14 and the over 70. Next matchup, San Jose State, UNLV, 11 p.m. Eastern kickoff on Thursday. San Jose State's minus 5, totals 46.5. The Spartans have won 8 out of these teams' last 10 meetings, and they covered the number in 80% of those contests. The San Jose State defense is in the top 25 in third quarter points allowed. Kyle Harmon leads the D with 66 total tackles. They're taking on a winless UNLV team who's scoring just 19 points a game, and they rank 121st in offensive yards per play at home. Meanwhile, the Spartan defense gives up 37 points a game at home, and they allow over 325 pass yards a game in Sin City. Now, total-wise, 2 out of San Jose State's last 3 ball games did get over the total. I'm going to lean towards San Jose State minus 5 and the over 46.5. Next contest, Middle Tennessee State versus UConn, 6 p.m. Eastern start time on Friday. Middle Tennessee State's minus 15, totals 56. The Blue Raiders have successfully covered the number in 2 out of their last 3. They're also in the top 20 in fourth quarter scoring. They're taking on a UConn team who's just 1-7 on the year, with their lone victory coming against Yale. The Huskies are scoring just 16 points a game, and they're 126th in offensive yards per play. Meanwhile, defensively, UConn's allowing 35 points a game, and they rank 116th in rush defense. Now, total-wise, 3 out of the Huskies' last 4 home games fell under the line. Meanwhile, Middle Tennessee went 3-1 to the under in their 4 road games themselves. I'm going to lean toward Middle Tennessee State minus 15 and the under 56. Next contest, Memphis versus UCF, 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff Friday night. UCF's minus 2, totals 64. Now, the Knights have lost 3 out of their last 4 ball games, 0-4 against the number in those contests. This UCF defense allows over 32 points a game. They're taking on a Memphis club who throws for over 305 yards a game, and they rank in the top 10 in offensive yards per play. Seth Hennigan has thrown for nearly 2,200 yards along with 16 touchdowns. Calvin Austin III has over 850 receiving yards already, along with 8 touchdowns. Memphis is in the top 10 in fourth quarter scoring on the road. When it comes to the number in this one, the Tigers are 3-0 to the over when traveling. UCF is 5-1 to the over for the entire season. I'm going to lean toward Memphis plus 2 and the over 64. Next game, Colorado State versus Utah State, 9:30 Eastern kickoff on Friday. Colorado State's minus 3.5, totals 58. The 3-3 Rams are averaging only 24 points a game. And they rank 106th in offensive yards per play. They're taking on a Utah State team who ranks in the top 15 in pass yards per game. Devin Tompkins has 819 receiving yards, along with 6 scores. The Aggies are in the top 10 in fourth quarter scoring. When it comes to the total in this one, Utah State's 3-0 to the under in their last 3. Colorado State's 4-1 to the under in their last 5. Give me Utah State plus 3.5 and the under 58. Next game, Washington, Arizona, 10:30 p.m. Eastern start time on Friday. Washington's minus 17.5, numbers 45. They're taking on a winless Arizona team who scores just 14 points a game and ranks 117th in offensive yards per play. Meanwhile, defensively, the Wildcats allow 32 points per contest and nearly 230 rush yards a game at home. They've also struggled in recent meetings with Washington, just 3-7 straight up in their last 10 ball games against the Huskies. And speaking of Washington, they successfully covered the point spread in 70% of their last 10 meetings with Arizona as well. Washington is in the top 5 in pass defense. Edoafan Olaficio, or however you say it, has 51 total tackles on the year. Washington's 5-1 to the under thus far in the season. Arizona 4-2 to the under themselves. Give me Washington minus 17.5, under 45. Next game, Arkansas Pine Bluff versus Arkansas Razorbacks, 12 p.m. East. The Razorbacks are minus 51.5, total 62. But regardless of how much better the Razorbacks are, they're certainly not playing their best football right now. They're currently on a 3-game losing streak, and they give up 175 rush yards a game on the ground. And as good as they've been offensively, Arkansas's they are 97th in second quarter scoring. This is a ridiculous number. Give me Arkansas Pine Bluff plus 51.5 and the over 62. Next matchup, Cincinnati versus Navy, 12 p.m. Eastern kickoff. Cincy's minus 27.5, totals 49. The 6-0 Bearcats are 5-1 against the spread, and they're averaging 44 points a game. Jerome Ford has rushed for 709 yards, and he scored a dozen times. Meanwhile, defensively, the Bearcats allow only 13 points a game, and they rank in the top 5 in defensive yards per play. Now they're taking on a one-dimensional Navy team who ranks 127th in offensive yards per play. The 1-5 midshipmen are also scoring just 17 points a game at home. Now, total-wise, 2 out of Navy's last 3 contests did get over the line, throwing out the Memphis game. Meanwhile, Cincy's 3-1 to the over in their last 4 themselves. Give me Cincinnati minus 27.5 and the over 49. Next contest, it is going to be Eastern Michigan versus Bowling Green, 12 o'clock East. Eastern Michigan's minus 3, totals 49.5. The Eagles have lost 2 out of their last 3. They're also failing to establish a respectable run game. They're rushing for just 79 yards a game away from home. They're taking on a Bowling Green squad who's done a real nice job against the number this season. Bowling Green's currently 6-1 against the spread overall for the year. They're in the top 3 in the nation in pass defense. Darren Anders has 66 total tackles on the year, a couple of sacks and a pick 6 for the linebacker. The Falcons are in the top 25 in fewest yards allowed per play. When it comes to the total in this one, Bowling Green is 5-2 to the under for the season. Eastern Michigan 2-1 to the under when traveling. Give me Bowling Green plus 3 and the under 49.5. Next contest, it is going to be Illinois versus Penn State, 12 o'clock Eastern start time. The Penn State Nittany Lions are minus 23.5, totals 46 and a hook. The 5-1 Nittany Lions are 3-1 against the spread at Beaver Stadium, and they rank in the top 5 in yards allowed per play. The Nittany Lions are also allowing just 12 points a game in Happy Valley. Jair Brown has 3 interceptions on the year, along with 19 total tackles. They're taking on an Illinois squad who struggles to move the football. The Illini's 122nd in pass offense, and they're averaging only 11 points a game on the road. Now, total-wise, Illinois 6-1 to the under on the year. Penn State's 3-1 to the under at Beaver Stadium. Give me Penn State minus 23.5 and the under 46 and a hook. Next contest, Kansas State versus Texas Tech, 12 o'clock East. Texas Tech is -1, total 60.5. The Red Raiders are in the top 10 in the country in offensive yards per play. Erica Ezekanma has 505 receiving yards on the season and averages nearly 16.5 yards a catch. The Red Raiders are in the top 5 in the nation in third quarter scoring. They're taking on a K-State team who throws for just 194 yards a game. They also rank 124th in third quarter scoring. When it comes to the total in this one, Kansas State's last 4 contests did get over the line. They also went 7-3 to the over in their last 10 meetings with Texas Tech. I'm going to lean toward Texas Tech -1 in the over 60.5. Next matchup, it is going to be UMass versus Florida State, 12 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Florida State's -35.5, total 60. But as bad as UMass is, Florida State failed to cover in 4 out of their last 5 ball games. They also have a handful of guys on the injury report. The Seminoles are 111th in home passing. They're taking on a UMass team who successfully covered the number in 3 out of their last 5. When it comes to the total in this one, the Minutemen, their last 3 straight, all fell under the total. Meanwhile, Florida State's 4-1 the under in their last 5 themselves. I'm going to lean toward UMass plus 35.5 and the under 60. Next ball game, it is going to be Northern Illinois versus Central Michigan, 12 o'clock East. Central Michigan's minus 5.5, totals 58. Northern Illinois, they're on a 4-game winning streak, 3-1 against the number in those 4 wins. The Huskies are in the top 10 in rush yards per game. Harrison Whaley's averaging over 5.5 yards per carry, and he scored 5 times. NIU's in the top 25 in fourth quarter scoring. They're taking on a Central Michigan squad who's really having a tough time covering the point spread. They failed to cover in 4 out of their last 5, and they've got more than a handful of guys on the injury report. The Chippewas rank 104th in first quarter scoring at home. When it comes to the number in this one, 5 out of Central Michigan's last 7 ball games fell under the line. NIU's also 2-1 to the under in their last 3 road games. Give me Northern Illinois plus 5.5 and the under 58. Next matchup, it is going to be Northwestern versus Michigan, 12 o'clock Eastern start. Michigan is minus 23, numbers 51. The undefeated Wolverines are 5-1 against the spread, and they're amongst the best rushing teams in college football. Blake Corum is gaining over 100 yards per contest on the ground, and he scored 8 times rushing. Meanwhile, Hassan Haskins has scored 8 times on the ground himself and averages nearly 5 yards a carry. Meanwhile, defensively, Michigan's giving up only 11 points a game in the Big House. They're taking on a Northwestern team who struggles to move the football. Northwestern scoring just 15 points a game when they travel. And they're rushing for only 92 yards a game in that same category. When it comes to the scoring in this one, Northwestern is 2-0 to the over away from home. Michigan's 3-1 to the over in their last 4 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Michigan minus 21 in the over 51 points. Next ball game, it is going to be Oklahoma versus Kansas, 12 o'clock East. OU's minus 38.5, totals 67. The undefeated Sooners are scoring 43 points a game, and they're in the top 15 in offensive yards per play. Kennedy Brooks has rushed for nearly 700 yards, and he scored 7 times on the ground. Oklahoma's in the top 10 in third quarter scoring. They're taking on a Kansas team who failed to cover the number in all 6 of their contests. Kansas scores just 12 points a game at home, and they're 129th in home offensive yards per play. Now, the Jayhawks are 4-2 to the over on the year. Oklahoma's 5-2 to the over themselves. Give me Oklahoma minus 38.5 and the over 67. Next matchup, Wake Forest versus Army, 12 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Wake Forest is minus 3, numbers 52. Now, the Demon Deacons are scoring 29 points a game, and they're in the top 10 in second quarter scoring. They're taking on an Army team who lost their last 2 straight and failed to cover in 3 out of their last 5. Army's also taken the loss in 6 out of their last 7 meetings with Wake Forest. When it comes to the number in this one, 2 out of Army's last 3 home games got over the line. Wake Forest is 2-0 to the over in their last 2 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Wake Forest minus 3 and the over 52. Next game, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, 12:30 East. The Hokies are minus 3, totals 46. The Hokies also lost 3 out of their last 4 ball games, 0-4 against the spread during that span. Virginia Tech's 117th in offensive yards per play at home, and they're throwing for just 172 yards a game in Blacksburg. They're taking on a Syracuse team who's been covering machines. They've successfully covered the point spread in their last 5 straight, 6-1 against the number overall for the season. Sean Tucker is rushing for over 135 yards a game, and he scored 9 times on the ground. The Orange, they're gaining 261 rush yards a game on the road. When it comes to the number, 2 out of Syracuse's last 3 ball games got over the line, 3-2 to the over in their last 5. Give me Syracuse plus 3 and the over 46. Next contest, Kent State versus Ohio, 1 p.m. Eastern start time. Kent State's -5.5, total 66. Kent State won 2 out of their last 3 ball games. Top 15 in the country in first quarter scoring. They're taking on a 1-6 Ohio team who hasn't won a game at home yet this year. The Bobcats are scoring just 20 points a game, and they throw for less than $1.45 per contest. Now, total-wise, Ohio saw their last 4 straight stay under the number. Kent State's 5-2 to the under for the entire season themselves. Give me Kent State -5.5 and the under 66. Next ball game, it is going to be Texas State versus Georgia State, 2 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Georgia State's -11, total 60.5. The Georgia State Panthers lost 4 out of their last 6, and they're scoring just 15 points a game at home. They're taking on a Texas State club who covered their last 2 straight, 4-2 against the spread overall for the season. I'm going to lean toward Texas State +11 in the over 60.5. Next matchup, Wisconsin versus Purdue, 3 p.m. Eastern start time. Wisconsin is -3, totals 40. The Badgers have 1 million guys on the injury report this week. They've also failed to cover in 3 out of their last 4 ball games. Wisconsin had a real big problem moving the football this season. They're averaging only 19 points a game, and they rank 103rd in offensive yards per play. Now they're taking on a Purdue squad who's 4-2 thus far in the season, and that includes big wins over Oregon State and Iowa. The Boilermakers can also throw it all over the football field. They're in the top 10 in pass yards per game. David Bell's got 679 receiving yards and 4 scores. The junior's averaging just about 18 yards a catch. Now, total-wise, Purdue's 3-0 to the under at home, 6-0 to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, Wisconsin's 4-2 to the under themselves. I'm going to lean toward Purdue +3 in the under 40. Next contest, it is going to be BYU versus WAZZU, 3:30 p.m. East. BYU's -5, totals 55. BYU's on a 2-game losing streak, 1-3 against the spread in their last 4. Now, their stud linebacker is out for the season. They've got a bunch of guys injured right now. BYU's currently 106th in third quarter scoring. But they're taking on a Washington State club who's on a 3-game winning streak, and they also got the W in their last. They're on a 3-game winning streak, or are they on a 4-game winning streak? I don't know. They're winning a bunch of games here recently. Who's writing this stuff? Total-wise, Washington State 5-2 to the under on the season. BYU 5-2 to the under in their last 7 themselves. Give me WAZZU +5 in the under 55. Next game, Buffalo, Akron, 3:30 Eastern kickoff. Buffalo's -11, totals 57. And for a team laying Peter Cetera. For a team laying double digits on the road, these guys have failed to cover the number in their last 4 straight. 0-3 against the number away from home this year as well. The Bulls have had a tough time on defense this year. They're 107th in yards allowed per play on the road. They're taking on an Akron team who covered the number in their last 2 straight. And believe it or not, they hold their opponents to just 140 passing yards a game at home. Charles Amankwa has 3 interceptions from this secondary, 22 total tackles as well. When it comes to the total in this one, the Zips' last 2 straight got over the number. Buffalo saw 2 out of their last 3 get over the line themselves. Give me Akron +11 and the over 57. Next contest, Clemson versus Pittsburgh, 3:30 Eastern start time. The Pitt Panthers are -3, totals 48. But despite having an incredible season thus far, Pitt really hasn't faced a defense like Clemson yet. These guys are single-handedly winning ball games without any offensive production. The Tigers are in the top 10 in yards allowed per play. They're giving up only 12 points a game as well. Balin Spector has 44 total tackles on the year, along with an interception. This Tiger D is in the top 3 in fewest fourth quarter points allowed. Now, total-wise, Pittsburgh's 5-1 to the under thus far in the season. Give me Clemson +3 and the under 48. Next ball game, Colorado versus Cal. 3:30 Eastern start time. Cal's -9, numbers 43. The Golden Bears are on a 3-game losing streak, 1-5 straight up overall for the season. Cal's 113th in home scoring, and they're throwing for just 205 yards a game on their home field. They're taking on a Colorado team who's holding their opponents to just 19 points a game. The Buffs are also in the top 20 in fewest first quarter points allowed. Nate Landman has 53 total tackles and 4 PDs. When it comes to the total in this one, the Buffs are 5-1 at the under thus far in the year. 2 out of Cal's last 3 home games stayed under the line. Give me Colorado +9 and the under 43. Next contest, it is going to be LSU versus Ole Miss, 3:30 Eastern kickoff. Ole Miss is -9.5, total 75 and a hook. Ole Miss has failed to cover in 2 out of their last 3, and they've been giving up a whole bunch of points here recently. As a matter of fact, the Rebels are 109th in rush defense, and they're allowing over 30 points a game. They're taking on an LSU squad who's won 4 out of their last 6, and they do a pretty nice job throwing the football. Max Johnson's thrown for nearly 1,900 yards already, along with 20 touchdown passes. Wide receiver Keyshawn Butte has 38 grabs for 509 yards and 9 scores. Meanwhile, defensively, as much as they've struggled, LSU still ranks in the top 20 in fewest first quarter points allowed. Now, total-wise, LSU's last 2 straight got over the number. Ole Miss 3-2 to the over in their last 5. Give me LSU +9.5 and the over 75 and a hook. Next matchup, Maryland versus Minnesota, 3:30 Eastern start time. Minnesota's -5, numbers 54 and a hook. Minnesota's been literally zero threat to pass this year. They're throwing for just 147 yards a game at home, and they rank 110th in offensive yards per play at home as well. Now they're taking on a Maryland team who won 4 out of their last 6, despite their recent struggles. Taulia Tungavaloa, he's completing over 72% of his passes, and he's thrown for nearly 1,800 yards. The Terps are in the top 15 in the country in offensive passing on the road. Scoring-wise, 3 out of Minnesota's last 4 ball games fell under the line. Give me Maryland +4 and the under 54.5. Next contest, it is going to be Miami, Ohio versus Ball State, 3:30 Eastern start time. Ball State's -4.5, totals 51. Ball State's on a 3-game winning streak, 3-0 against the spread in those victories. This Ball State defense is in the top 20 in the nation in fewest third quarter points allowed at home. The Cardinals have 8 interceptions already, and they're led by Jalen Thomas, who's got 55 total tackles on the year. They're taking on a Miami team who failed to cover in 4 out of their last 5 ball games, 2-5 against the spread overall for this season. The Red Hawks are 111th in road scoring. When it comes to the number in this one, 4 out of Miami's last 5 ball games fell under the line. Meanwhile, Ball State's 3-0 to the under on their home field. I'm going to lean toward Ball State -4.5 and the under 51. Next contest, New Mexico versus Wyoming, 3:30 Eastern start. The Wyoming Cowboys are -20, totals 40. Despite how bad New Mexico is, Wyoming's playing some pretty shoddy football as of late themselves. 0-3 against the spread in their last 3 straight. 1-5 against the number overall for the season. The Cowboys are throwing for just over $170 a game. They're taking on a New Mexico squad who successfully covered the number in 7 out of their last 10 meetings with Wyoming. Now, their defense is also allowing just 207 yards a game passing, and they rank in the top 20 in the country in fewest fourth quarter points allowed on the road. Jarek Reed, he has 60 total tackles and an interception. When it comes to the scoring in this one, New Mexico's last 2 straight fell under the number, 4-1 to the under in their last 5. Meanwhile, Wyoming's last 3 straight all fell under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward New Mexico +20 and the under 40. Next matchup, it is going to be Oklahoma State versus Iowa State, 3:30 p.m. East. The Iowa State Cyclones are -7. Totals 47. But as good as the Cyclones have been, they failed to cover in 2 out of their last 3 home games. They've also struggled with Oklahoma State in recent meetings, just 2-8 straight up in their last 10 contests against the Cowboys. And speaking of Oklahoma State, they're 6-0 thus far in the season, 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 straight. The Cowboys give up just 19 points a game, and they're in the top 15 in the country in rush defense. Malcolm Rodriguez has 59 total tackles, 2 forced fumbles, and a scoop and score. This Cowboy defense is also in the top 3 in fewest fourth quarter points allowed. Now, total-wise, Iowa State went 3-0 to the over in their last 3 ball games. All were in-conference games, by the way. Give me Oklahoma State +7 in the over 47. Next contest, it is going to be Oregon versus UCLA, 3:30 p.m. East. The UCLA Bruins are -2.5, number 61. This Bruin offense is throwing for only 205 yards a game. Meanwhile, defensively, they've done a real poor job defending the pass. They rank 122nd in pass defense. The Bruins currently have more than a handful of guys on the injury list. They're pretty banged up right now. Now they're taking on a 5-1 Oregon squad who does a real nice job running the football. Travis Dye is gaining over 6.5 yards a carry and has over 525 total yards on the ground. Meanwhile, C.J. Verdell scored 6 times on the ground himself and averages nearly 5.5 yards a carry. The Ducks are in the top 10 in the country in road rushing. When it comes to the total in this one, Oregon's last 2 straight fell under the number, 4-2 to the under overall for the season. Meanwhile, UCLA saw 3 out of their last 4 fall under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Oregon +2.5 and the under 61. Next matchup, it is going to be Rice versus UAB, 3:30 East. UAB's -23, numbers 45. UAB's on a 2-game winning streak, 4-1 against the spread in their last 5. The Blazers are allowing only 19 points a game, and they're led by Noah Wilder, who's got 4... Spit it out, dude. Noah Wilder. He's got 42 total tackles and a pick. They're taking on a Rice team who's 0-3 on the road, and they failed to cover in all 3 of those losses. Rice has had a real tough time moving the football. They're 126th in offensive yards per play on the road, and they're averaging just 5 points a game when they travel. Just 5 points a game on the road. Now, total-wise, Rice saw 2 out of their last 3 road games somehow get over the number. 4-2 to the over for the entire season. I'm going to lean toward UAB -23 in the over 45. Next matchup, Western Michigan versus Toledo, 3:30 East. Western Michigan's -2.5, totals 55. The Broncos have won 5 out of their last 6 ball games, 5-1 against the spread during that stretch. Caleb Ellaby's thrown for nearly 1,750 yards already, along with a dozen touchdowns. The sophomore quarterback's thrown only 2 interceptions as well. He's got 3 receivers with well over 400 yards receiving apiece already. They're taking on a Toledo squad who's on a 2-game losing streak, and they rank 110th in home rushing. The Rockets are also 101st in the nation in home scoring as well. When it comes to the total in this one, Toledo's last 5 straight fell under the total. Western Michigan saw 2 out of their last 3 road games fall under the line. I'm going to lean toward Western Michigan -2.5 and the under 55. Next contest, it is going to be Boston College, Louisville, 4 p.m. East. Louisville's -6, totals 57. The Cards are on a 2-game losing streak. Their defense is 105th in yards allowed per play. They're also giving up 300 yards passing a game as well. They're taking on a BC opponent who successfully covered the point spread in 3 out of their last 4. Boston College is allowing just 16 points a game when they travel. They're led by Isaiah Graham Mobley, who's got 38 tackles on the year. Now, 6 out of these teams' last 7 gatherings did get over the line. Give me Boston College +6 in the over 57. Next game, East Carolina versus Houston, 4 p.m. Eastern start time. The Houston Cougars are -13, totals 58. Houston's on a 5-game winning streak, 4-1 against the number in those 5 victories. The Cougs are scoring over 37 points a game offensively. They rank in the top 10 in first quarter scoring. Meanwhile, defensively, Houston's in the top 3 in the nation in home pass defense. Donovan Mutin has 35 total tackles and a sack. He's also got a forced fumble and a fumble recovery. They're taking on an ECU squad who's 117th in third quarter scoring. Meanwhile, defensively, the Pirates are 111th in third quarter points allowed. Total-wise, 7 out of ECU's last 10 meetings with Houston got over the number. Meanwhile, the Cougs saw 4 out of their last 5 get over the line. Give me Houston -13 in the over 58. Next matchup, Liberty, North Texas, 4 p.m. Eastern kickoff. The Liberty Flames are -21, total 60.5. Despite a shocking 3-point loss to UL Monroe this past week, I'd look for the Flames to get, the job done here in a bounce-back spot. Liberty allows only 16 points a game. They're in the top 10 in the country in fewest yards allowed per play. Story Jackson has 52 tackles, 3 sacks, and a pick. They're taking on a North Texas team who lost their last 5 straight, and they throw for only 138 yards a game at home. Now, total-wise, North Texas is 4-2 to the under for the entire year. Liberty's 3-1 to the under when traveling. Give me Liberty -21 and the under 60.5. Next matchup, Mississippi State versus Vandy, 4 o'clock East. Mississippi State's -21, totals 51. The Bulldogs are in the top 3 in the country in road passing. They're led by Will Rogers, who's thrown for almost 2,200 yards already. The Bulldogs are throwing for over 360 yards a game. They're taking on a Vanderbilt squad who's simply not built for a track meet. They're 125th in offensive yards per play at home, and they're scoring just 14 points a game. Meanwhile, defensively, the Commodores are 124th in yards allowed per play at home. Now, total-wise, Vandy's 3-1 to the over on their home field. I'm going to lean toward the Bulldogs, -21 in the over 51. Next matchup, Nevada versus Fresno State, 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Fresno's -3, number 64.5. Now, I'll tell you what, Fresno State hasn't played really at a high level in the past couple of weeks. That said, though, they're 3-0 straight up at home, and they're throwing for over 410 yards a game in those home contests. Jake Hayner's thrown for over 2,300 yards already, along with 20 touchdown passes. Jalen Cropper has 546 receiving yards and 10 touchdown catches. Fresno State scoring 49 points a game on their home field. Now they're taking on a Nevada club who's 93rd in pass defense. That's going to be a problem. They're also 109th in fourth quarter points allowed. I just don't think this Nevada defense is going to be able to get enough stops to keep these guys in it. And when it comes to the total in this one, 2 out of Fresno's last 3 home games got over the number. Meanwhile, Nevada's 4-1 to the over in their last 5. I'm going to lean toward Fresno -3 and the over 64.5. Next matchup, San Diego State versus Air Force, 7 o'clock Eastern start. Air Force is -3, totals 40. But as good as Air Force has been this year, the one-dimensional Falcons have failed to cover in 2 out of their last 4 home games. They're also taking on an undefeated 6-0 San Diego State team who successfully covered the number in 4 out of their last 5. Now, they're also the #1 rush defense in the country, which is imperative in beating Air Force. Patrick McMorris, he has 40 total tackles on the season, along with an interception. The Aztecs are in the top 3 in fewest yards allowed per play. When it comes to the total in this one, San Diego State saw 3 out of their last 5 ball games get over the line. Give me San Diego State +3 and the over 40. Next matchup, South Alabama versus UL Monroe. 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff. South Alabama's minus 14, totals 51. Now the South Alabama Jaguars are 105th in offensive yards per play on the road. They're taking on a UL Monroe program who just had an historic victory over Liberty this past week. The Warhawks are also 3-1 straight up on their home field, and they successfully covered the point spread 3 times during that stretch. UL Monroe has also beaten South Alabama in 4 out of their last 7 meetings. Now, total-wise, UL Monroe's last 3 straight all got over the total. Meanwhile, 3 out of South Alabama's last 4 got over the line themselves. Give me UL Monroe plus 14 in the over 51. Next contest, Temple versus USF. 7 o'clock Eastern start time. The South Florida Bulls are minus 2.5, totals 54 and a hook. USF's on a 3-game losing streak, 1 of 5 straight up in their last 6. The Bulls have struggled on both sides of the football. They're 108th in scoring offensively, and they're allowing over 35 points a game defensively. As a matter of fact, this Bulls defense is giving up 255 yards a game on the ground at Raymond James Stadium. They're taking on a Temple squad who won 2 out of their last 3, and that includes a 3-point victory over Memphis. The Owls defense has done a real nice job defending the pass. They're in the top 10 in the country in pass defense. Safety Amir Tyler has 40 tackles on the season. MJ Griffin with 36 tackles. When it comes to the total in this one, Temple's last 2 straight got over the number. 3-0 to the over in their road games. Meanwhile, USF is 3-0 to the over on their home field. I'm going to lean toward Temple plus 2.5 in the over 54 and a hook. Next game, Tennessee versus Alabama, 7 o'clock East. The Alabama Crimson Tide are minus 24.5, number 67. Now the Tide, they got back on track with a 40-point dismantling of Mississippi State this past week. The Tide's covered in 3 out of their last 4 ball games, and they're really going to have to blow these teams out to stay atop of the rankings. The Tide's scoring 51 points a game in Tuscaloosa, and they're in the top 15 in offensive yards per play. Bryce Young has thrown for nearly 2,100 yards already, along with 24 touchdowns. Meanwhile, defensively, Bama's holding their opponents to just 60 yards a game rushing at home. They're taking on a Tennessee team who failed to cover in 7 out of their last 10 meetings with Alabama. This Tennessee defense also ranks 93rd in the country in pass yards allowed per game. Now, total-wise, 4 out of Tennessee's last 6 got over the line. Meanwhile, Bama saw 3 out of their last 5 get over the number themselves. Give me Alabama minus 24.5 in the over 67. Next contest, it is going to be Texas San Antonio versus Louisiana Tech, 7 o'clock Eastern start. UTSA's minus 7, total 60. Now, the undefeated Roadrunners of Texas San Antonio, they're also 6-1 against the spread in their 7 victories. San Antonio's allowing only 19 points a game, and they're in the top 5 in rush defense. Tremaine Bell and Clarence Hicks, they each have 3.5 sacks thus far in the season. Rashad Wisdom leads the program with 44 tackles. They're taking on a Louisiana Tech team who's done a real poor job defending the pass. The Bulldogs allow over 325 pass yards a game at home. The Bulldogs have also lost 3 out of their last 4 ball games. Now, total-wise, 2 out of Louisiana Tech's last 3 did stay under the line. The Roadrunners are 5-1 to the under in their last 6. I'm going to lean toward Texas San Antonio, minus 7, in the under 60. Next contest, it is going to be Western Kentucky versus Florida Atlantic, 7 p.m. East. Western Kentucky's minus 15, total is 76.5. The Hilltoppers are leading the country in passing. Bailey Zappi's thrown for nearly 2,700 yards already, along with 26 touchdown passes. Now, wide receiver Jareth Stearns, he's averaging over 160 yards a game receiving. And he also has 8 touchdown grabs. Western Kentucky's averaging 41 points a game. They're taking on an FIU team who ranks 123rd in pass defense. They're also allowing nearly 300 yards a game through the air. Now, total-wise, both teams have gone 5-1 to the over on the season, respectively. I'm going to lean toward Western Kentucky minus 15 and in the over 76.5. Next contest, it is going to be Georgia Tech versus Virginia, 7:30 Eastern start time. Virginia's minus 7, number's 62. The Cavaliers are on a 3-game winning streak, and they successfully cashed in on the number in all 3 of those victories. The Cavaliers are in the top 3 in the country in passing, and they're led by Brennan Armstrong, who's thrown for over 2,800 yards, along with 19 touchdowns. They're taking on a Georgia Tech team who failed to cover in their last 2 straight. They gave up 79 total points in those ball games. The Yellow Jackets are 107th in the country in first quarter points allowed. Now, total-wise, Georgia Tech's 2-0 to the under on the road. Virginia's 4-0 to the under at home. Give me Virginia minus 7, under 62. Next game, NC State versus Miami, 7:30 Eastern kickoff. The NC State Wolfpacks minus 3, totals 51.5. NC State's on a 4-game winning streak, 4-2 against the number in their last 6. The Wolfpacks in the top 10 in rush defense on the road. They're allowing only 14 points a game. The Wolfpacks also got 8 interceptions already. They're led by linebacker Drake Thomas, who has 44 total tackles. They're taking on a Miami team who lost 3 out of their last 4, and has a ton of guys on the injury report. This Miami defense is 101st in the country in pass defense at home. Now, total-wise, 2 out of Miami's last 3 ball games did get over the number. NC State's 3-1 of the over in their last 4. I'm going to lean toward NC State minus 3 and the over 51.5. Next contest, Ohio State versus Indiana, 7:30 Eastern start time. Ohio State's minus 21, total 60.5. The Buckeyes are on a 4-game winning streak, 3-0 against the number in their last 3. The Buckeyes are in the top 3 in offensive yards per play, and they're averaging 49 points a game. C.J. Stroud's thrown for just about 1,700 yards, along with 18 touchdown passes. Meanwhile, Travion Henderson's averaging over 100 yards a game on the ground, and he scored 9 rushing touchdowns. Now, the freshman running back's also gaining nearly 9 yards a carry. They're taking on an Indiana team who's 101st in the country in third quarter points allowed. The Hoosiers have also failed to cover the point spread in their last 4 straight. Now, total-wise, 2 out of Indiana's last 3 home games got over the line, 7-3 to the over in their last 10 meetings with Ohio State. Meanwhile, the Buckeyes saw 3 out of their last 4 get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Ohio State minus 21 and the over 60.5. Next contest, it is going to be South Carolina versus Texas A&M, 7:30 East. Texas A&M's minus 21, totals 45. The Aggies rank 102nd in fourth quarter scoring. They're also throwing for just over 210 yards a game, very modest numbers there. They're taking on a South Carolina team who won 2 out of their last 3 and ranks in the top 20 in pass defense. Jalen Foster has 4 interceptions on the season, 2 forced fumbles, and a couple of sacks for the defensive back. Now, the reason why this number is so big is because South Carolina is going to have to go with their backup quarterback here. Although the good news is he does actually have more touchdown passes under his belt than the starter. This is really a play focused on the defense. Total-wise, both schools are 5-2 to the under overall for the season. I'm going to lean towards South Carolina plus 21 and the under 45. Next contest, USC versus Notre Dame, 7:30 Eastern start time. Notre Dame's minus 7, totals 57 and a hook. Now, the Irish have failed to cover in 2 out of their last 3 home games. They've also done a really poor job establishing the run this year. They're gaining only 97 yards a game on the ground. They're taking on a USC team who's averaging 41 points a game on the road, and they're throwing for nearly 320 yards per contest. Drake London has over 832 yards receiving and 5 scores. USC is officially in the top 10 in offensive yards per play on the road. When it comes to the total in this one, both programs have gone 4-2 to the over in their last 6 ball games. I'm going to lean toward USC plus 7 and the over 57.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Utah versus Oregon State, 7:30 Eastern kickoff. The Utah Utes are -3, numbers 56.5. Despite playing some pretty good football here recently, Utah struggled to cover the number this year. They're just 2-4 against the spread through 6 ball games. Their offense is 101st in second quarter scoring. They're taking on an Oregon State team who's won 4 out of their last 5 ball games. They covered the number in 80% of those contests. The Beavers are also 3-0 straight up at home, and they're averaging 38 points per contest on their home field. B.J. Baylor's rushed for 9 touchdowns already and averages 113 yards a game on the ground. Meanwhile, defensively, Oregon State's a top 20 rush defense. Total-wise, Utah's last 2 straight got over the number, 3 of them under the over in their last 4. I'm going to lean toward Oregon State +3 and the over 56.5. Next contest, West Virginia versus TCU, 7:30 Eastern start. TCU's -4.5, totals 57. Now the Horned Frogs are scoring over 37 points a game, and they're rushing for nearly 230 yards per contest. Zach Evans and Kendre Miller, they've combined for 11 rushing touchdowns, and they both average nearly 8 yards a carry. The Horned Frogs are in the top 10 in offensive yards per play. They're taking on a West Virginia team who has really struggled on the road over the past few seasons. They don't travel well. They're 0-3 straight up on the road this season, and they rank 125th in first quarter points allowed. Now, total-wise, TCU saw their last 2 straight get over the line, 4-1 to the over in their last 5. I'm going to lean toward TCU -4.5 and the over 57. With that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup, New Mexico State versus Hawaii, midnight Eastern kickoff. Hawaii's -18, total 60. The Rainbow Warriors have won 2 out of their last 3 home games, 2-1 against the number in those contests. This Hawaii defense is in the top 15 in rush defense at home, and they give up only 83 yards a game in that same particular category. Corey Bethley has 2 forced fumbles and 50 total tackles for Hawaii. The D-back also has 3 sacks, a fumble recovery, and a pair of interceptions from that secondary. They're taking on a New Mexico State team who's just 1-6, and they rank 113th in offensive yards per play. The Aggies are 0-4 on the road, and they give up 39 points a game when traveling. They're 3-1 to the over when traveling this year, 5-3 to the over in their last 8 meetings with the Rainbow Warriors. Give me Hawaii -18 and the over 60. And with that, guys, now it's time for our quick pick recap, powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are 3-0 in our last 3 college football tier package picks. I like Coastal Carolina -5 over 61, Charlotte +7 over 56.5, Arkansas State +17.5 under 70, SMU -14 over 70 points. San Jose State -5 over 46 and a hook. Middle Tennessee State -15 under 56. Memphis +2 over 64. Utah State +3.5 under 58. Washington -17.5 under 45. Arkansas Pine Bluff +51.5 over 62. Cincinnati -27.5 over 49. Bowling Green +3 under 49.5. Penn State -23 and a hook under 46.5. Texas Tech -1 over 60 and a hook. UMass +35.5 under 60. Northern Illinois +5.5 under 58. Michigan -21 over 51 points. Oklahoma -38.5 over 67. Wake Forest -3 over 52. Syracuse +3 over 46. Kent State -5.5 under 66. Texas State +11 over 60 and a hook. Purdue +3 under 40. Washington State +5 under 55. I'm also leaning toward Akron +11 over 57. Clemson +3 under 48. Colorado +9 under 43. LSU +9.5 over 75 and a hook. Maryland +4 under 54.5. Ball State -4.5 under 51. New Mexico +20 under 40. Oklahoma State +7 over 47 points. Oregon +2.5 under 61. UAB -23 over 45. Western Michigan -2.5 under 55 points. Boston College +6 over 57. Houston -13 over 58. Liberty -21 under 60 and a hook. Mississippi State -21 over 51. Fresno -3 over 64.5. San Diego State +3 over 40. UL Monroe +14 over 51. I'm also leaning toward Temple +2.5 over 54 and a hook. Alabama -24.5 over 67. I'm leaning toward Texas San Antonio -7 under 60. I also like Western Kentucky -15 over 76.5. Virginia Cavaliers -7 under 62. NC State Wolfpack -3 over 51 and a hook. Ohio State -21 over 60.5 points. South Carolina +21 under 45. USC +7 over 57.5. Oregon State +3 over 56 and a hook. TCU -4.5 over 57. And before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are 3-0 in our last 3 college football tier package picks on brockpage.com. We're also 6-0 in our last 6 NFL tier package picks on that very same website. I'm going to lean toward Hawaii -18 in the over 60. And with that, guys, now it's time for our shout out of the day. And that's going to go out to Cash for Life, who said earlier this morning, let's get this money. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. Now, if you guys do end up getting a membership here today on that website, just keep in mind you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today, you are going to get access to that content through the end of October. I do always tell people the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. With that said, guys, happy Wednesday to you. Happy hump day to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.